Maybe that'll help. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay. Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Today I want to show you how to start or how to set up a workflow inside of Google Drive, which is what we're going to be using mostly for storing our photos and things like that, and other projects that we're working on. So this is going to be where you store all of your projects and photos and things that you're working on. Google Drive will be the main source, and then Lightroom will also have a backup copy of all your stuff as well, so that way you have backup copies of both things. Now, that's something that I want to talk about. Workflow. Okay, workflow is the process of what you do, the steps that you take to get from raw photo in camera to final product photo, printed, whatever it is, on the web, wherever it's going, how the steps you take to get to that point. And file organization is a portion of that workflow. So we're going to specifically look at file organization because I find that tends to trip up students more often than anything else. Because you'll go to work on a project and be like, Mr. Mitchell, where is this thing? And I'm like, I don't know. Where is that thing? So file organization, keeping things in an organized state, is critical to your workflow. So I'm going to show you the workflow that I prefer to have for my photography and how I keep things kind of organized inside of Google Drive and elsewhere. This is the file structure I typically use everywhere, and then when I archive things, I just take this and zip it up and into an external hard drive. So let's get started on this. So the first thing, Google Drive, right? In order to access your Google Drive, you come over here to this grid menu, and it'll say Google Drive. So you can see here, oops, sorry, you'll want that three-dot grid menu. Okay, once you are here, there should be the option, that Google Drive option. I don't know why it keeps disappearing when I try to circle it, but that right there, Google Drive, and you can pop into it. Now, I'm not going to show you my side of the Google Drive because I've got some things in there that I don't want you to see, but once you get in there, okay, it'll look similar to this. I want you to create a new folder, so I'm just right-clicking on my mouse and say New Folder. That new folder we're going to call Photo 1 or 2, depending on which photo class you're in. And this will be the same for both. I'm going to leave mine as Photo 1, just for the sake of the video. So there's Photo 1. Okay. Now that I have this folder, I'm going to jump into there. And here's where I'm going to create my organization for all of my photos. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to think about how my workflow usually goes. Okay. So I take pictures on the camera, whether that camera is a mobile phone, which, by the way, if you're taking things on your phone, this is a lot simpler because you don't have to offload and all those things. So, whatever, I have what I'm calling raw photos, right? These are unedited, straight out of the camera. I've done nothing to them, okay? And so I'm going to create a folder inside of my Photo 1 folder or my Photo 2 folder that says raw photos. So I'm going to create a new folder, call it raw photos. Or you could call it unedited photos. You could call it anything like that. Okay. And it might be better to actually, you know what, honestly, it might be better to rename this. I've always just named it raw photos and kind of knew what I was talking about. It might be better to call this unedited photos. And here's why. Because there's actually a file type called RAW that's from your cameras, which is different than an unedited photo, right? So maybe it might be better to call it unedited photos versus RAW. So just like JPEG is a file format that you're all familiar with, it's a JPEG, right? Which means it's a picture. There's a RAW file format for pictures as well, which gives us more information. We'll get into file formats in a later video down the road, okay? Or maybe, because that way's up the road, down the road, okay? So here we go, unedited photos. That's our first folder, okay? Then I'm going to make a new folder called edited photos. Okay. Wowzers. So I have edited and unedited photos. Okay. And then I'm going to make another folder, a third folder called Photoshop. In case I ever do anything inside of Photoshop, I want a folder for that specific program. Okay, now in the unedited photos, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say raw for anything that is a raw file format, and I'm going to say JPEG for anything that is a JPEG format. You could also do any of the other file formats that you wanted to inside of here so that you have those. I'm going to jump back to my Photo 1 folder, and I'm going to come into my edited photos, and I'm going to say new folder. I'm going to put Lightroom in here. If this is an edited photo from Lightroom, or if it's an edited photo from Photoshop. So I'm actually going to change this a little bit as I'm going along here. See, this is making more sense to me. Here's my thinking, right? Photoshop is an edited photo. So if I wanted to make the most sense out of this, user-friendly, right? There's unedited photos which haven't been touched at all by any program, and there's edited photos. So Lightroom, Photoshop, or any other program that you might be using. But those are the two main ones. So it makes more sense to have Photoshop inside the edited photos folder versus by itself. Makes more sense, at least to me, from a user standpoint. So as you're walking through this and you're creating your own, you don't have to create it exactly like I am. You could create it however you want, but just make sure that the organization not only makes sense to you, but could potentially make sense to someone else who's coming through this as well. Because you know, as far as jobs and those things are concerned, a career in photography, you will be working with other photographers, and so if your file organization doesn't make sense to anyone else but you, that's why we don't call folders things like stuff 1, stuff 2, I hate this, you know, those kinds of things. Those names aren't helpful because if you pass that off to another photographer, how are they going to know really what you're looking at? Also, it makes you look less professional. But anyway, so under Lightroom folder here, I'm going to have a folder called exported. I'm going to have one called print. And I'm going to have one So there I paused. Here's why I paused. Let me have my thinking out loud here. I thought about putting this folder that I'm going to make now as an exported inside the exported one. But it might just make sense to get rid of the exported one versus, okay. So here's the folder, right? So I'm going to have a web folder, ones that are going to the web. Whether that website is your portfolio, whether that website is another client or whatever, those kinds of things. So this one's just exported to the computer. They've just been exported, general export. And it might make sense later on to get rid of this one. Now that I'm kind of looking at that and kind of thinking through it, might just be better to just get rid of it altogether, because then I'm going to leave it for now, but it might be something that would be better. These are ones that I'm going to print off on a printer, send to a printer, whatever. But these are ones that I want to have a printed copy of. Within the print one, it might be wise to do different sizes. Like I want this one to be a poster, an 11 by 17. This is 8 by 10s. These are 5 by 4s. All those different sizes of prints that you can get from the printers. Okay, and that might make sense later on as we're going down the road. I'm not going to make any of those folders now. You can if you want. This one, the web, I'm going to make one here called portfolio. Okay. Anyway, you know what I'm trying to get there. That's not spelled correctly. Portfolio. And this is where I'm going to put all of my photos that will go onto my Spark page for now as part of my portfolio, my learning journal, those kinds of things as I journey along my photography experience. Okay? I'm going to jump back out to my photo 1 folder, unedited photos. We have our JPEG and our RAW folder. Great. That is how I would set things up for this class, whether you're in photo 1 or photo 2. That's how I would. That's how I'm going to set my stuff up, right? That's how I do it. That way I can have different things. And the same thing with the Photoshop. There's going to be the exported, edited, and web folders inside of that Photoshop folder, plus anything else that you may need or want. But there you go. That's a good way to go about doing these things. As far as programs to make this a little bit easier, unfortunately this program does not run on Chromebook from what I know, but there is this program called Posthaste. Posthaste is a really great program if you want to start doing freelance stuff, taking those opportunities. As a beginning photographer, it would be a really good idea to have this Posthaste. I don't know if it works on Windows either. I know it works on Mac, because that's what I'm used to being on. But in here they have a bunch of different templates. One is photography, and if we go under the templates here, you can see that they have a Photoshop folder and a production documents folder. But you can also add any of these other ones that we just made here. So like new folder, I can call it Lightroom. Okay, and I want it on its own thing, so I'm going to bring it out. There's Lightroom. And within Lightroom, I can do everything I just did in my Google Drive, and then when I have a new project, here's the cool thing, is that I can give it a project number, or client, project name, all of those things, and when I hit create project, it'll give me a folder that'll say, just like here, the project number, the client, the name of the project. So let me set a fake client here. Let's Provo High School, PHS, project, let's call this football team. I'm only using them because I just emailed the coach. It's on my head. The date, so maybe I'm going out shooting today. Maybe I shot this photo shoot a couple of days ago. Maybe it was 3 days ago. So there you go. I can have that when I shot it. And then when I say create project, what it'll do is it'll create a folder where I want it to save it to. I'm going to just put it on the desktop. It will put this folder. Why won't it let me put it on the desktop? Okay. Anyway, I'm just going to put it in documents. Oh, there we go. We'll just go to desktop. There we go. All right. So now when I hit save, what I can do, and you'll notice that the project number automatically counted up and things like that inside of Post Haste, but what it has done, has created my entire file structure for me already right there. Okay, so it makes setting up this file, this part of your workflow a lot faster. So it's a tool that helps speed up part of your, it's a workflow tool that helps speed up part of your workflow. How many times can I say workflow in one video? Okay, anyway, there's how to set up your file structure inside of Google Drive. Please use Google Drive, not the computers themselves when you're here, or your Chromebooks when you're at home. Just because Chromebooks, one, don't have a whole lot of room on them, and two, the computers here, they have a little bit more storage on them, but everybody has access to that same desktop. So, not that you guys would mess with each other, but accidents happen. So please just don't use them. Use your Google Drive. Google Drive is provided to you with your student email account. So you just log into your student email and go to Google Drive. You're good to go. It's secure. It's yours. And as long as nobody can log in, it's as secure as you want to keep it. Let's put it that way. And that will give you what you need. So, yeah, that's it.